While so many people are traveling to Paris to watch the Olympic Games, I thought to myself, wow, wouldn't it be lovely to just stroll the streets of Paris and walk into all the bakeries and try all the different types of French pastries that I can see? That sounds amazing. However, that's not going to happen to me this time. So I thought, why don't I bring the French pastries to me? Now, I am no pastry chef whatsoever, and I have zero to little experience on baking these pastries. However, of recent, I have developed a little bit of a craving. No, let's restart. I've developed a big craving for these different French pastries I've been seeing all over the internet. And that has given me enough motivation to try some. So in this video, I want to show you how to make 3 classic French pastries that will satisfy that sweet pastry craving of yours, or mine. Now, the first pastry is the Armond Croissant. The Armond Croissant is your classic traditional French breakfast pastry, and it is filled with a sweet almond filling topped with toasted almond flakes. Now, you might be thinking, oh no, she's going to make croissants and that takes a long time. Yes, it does. And no, I am not making my own croissants. I don't have the time for that. So I'm going to use the store-bought croissants. So you've got 3 components to these almond croissants. You've got the syrup, the almond filling, and the assembling of your almond croissant. Firstly, we are going to make our syrup. So in a small saucepan, you're going to combine 1 cup of water, 2 tablespoons of sugar, and 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. And then you're going to bring that to a simmer for a minute or so and just stir continuously until the sugar dissolves, and then you can just remove it from the heat and let it cool to room temperature until you're ready to use it. The syrup is done. Next step is to make the almond filling. Now, in a bowl of a stand mixer or just in a regular bowl, and if you just have a hand mixer, that is totally fine. You're going to add in half a cup of sugar, 1 cup of almond meal or flour, and just a pinch of salt. Using the whisk attachment, you're going to mix that until it is well incorporated, and then you're going to blend in the butter. So for the butter, you will need 113 grams of unsalted butter, and making sure it has been at room temperature and it's sliced. And finally, you're going to use 2 large eggs. So you're going to add 1 egg at a time, mixing on medium to high speed until the whole mixture is creamy and fluffy with a frosting-like consistency, as you see here. And there you go. That is the almond filling. Super easy. Now, onto the last part, which is assembling your French almond croissants. Firstly, you will need to preheat the oven. So the oven will need to be at 180 degrees when the croissants go in. Line a baking tray with some baking paper and then just bring the croissants, the syrup, and the filling close to it. So now to assemble your croissant, you're going to slice the croissant horizontally. On the bottom half of the croissant, you're going to spread about 2 tablespoons of the almond filling. For the outside part of the croissant, you're going to dip those into the syrup, coating both sides well. Now, the croissant should be quite moist, but not soaking wet. So just dip it in for 1 second and then pop it out and pop it onto the baking tray. Then place the top half on top, and then you're going to spread about 1 tablespoon of almond filling over the top. Sprinkle with some almond flakes that you can get from Woolworths or Coles. You're going to bake these croissants for 15 to 18 minutes or until the cream is golden. Once they are done, transfer it to a wire rack and just let them cool to room temperature or just warm. For some extra sweetness or just for them to look a little bit more pretty, you can dust with some powdered sugar. And there you go. You've got your French almond croissants. So delicious, and I was so surprised how easy this was to make, and so I'm definitely going to make this again. The next pastry is the classic profiterole. The profiteroles are a classic French pastry made out of a dough called choux. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. I think. They are filled with a delicious custard or cream, or in this case, both. And it is drizzled with some melted chocolate on top. The recipe that I'm using is actually my own mother's. Growing up, we've always seen these profiteroles on the table for desserts, especially when we had guests over, because they are just a terrific small bite dessert option when you have a lot of people. So this is how to make delicious profiteroles. To make these profiteroles, you've got 4 parts to it. You've got your choux pastry balls, custard, cream, and then the assembling part. So starting with your pastry balls, in a small saucepan, you're going to combine 250 ml of water and 3/4 of a cup of sunflower or vegetable oil. Now, over low to medium heat, you're going to bring that to a simmer, and while this liquid is simmering, you're going to add 200 grams of plain flour. You're going to add that on top and stir vigorously with a wooden spoon until the dough forms sort of a ball, or it just pulls away from the sides of the saucepan. And this will take about 1 minute. Then you'll remove that from the heat and let this mixture cool down for about 10 minutes. Once that is cooled, you're going to add in the eggs. So you'll need 6 eggs, and you're going to add in 1 egg at a time. And between each egg, you're going to beat it until it is well incorporated, making sure that it is well combined before adding the next egg. After adding all the eggs, the dough should be like a thick paste, as you see here. So you'll need to place some baking paper over a baking tray. Using just a simple tablespoon, you're going to spoon out somewhere between a teaspoon and a tablespoon of the mixture, and you're going to place that onto the baking paper. And you can just simply use your fingers with a little bit of water and just kind of neatly form a little ball, or somewhat of a ball. Now, I did forget to say you'll need to preheat your oven to a whopping 240 degrees. So the oven should be hot, hot, hot. Once you've filled up your first tray with the pastry balls, you're going to pop that into the hot, hot, hot oven for about 10 minutes. Just keep an eye on it because all ovens are different. I found that 10 minutes in my oven was just right. Once you see that they've puffed up into a nice little bowl and they are a nice golden color, you're going to take that out of the oven, and I just simply do what my mum has always done, just lay out a clean towel on the table and just pop them right on there, leaving them there to cool down. And then you're just going to repeat that until you have no more of the mixture left. It took me 4 rounds to complete it all. Now for the filling, you have the custard and the cream. Some people just do the custard, some people just do the cream, but my mum has always done them both. For the custard, we are simply just going to use this custard mix. You'll need 40 grams of the custard powder with 500 ml of milk, 5 heaped tablespoons of sugar, and half a teaspoon of vanilla extract. In a small saucepan, you're going to combine the milk, sugar, and the vanilla extract. You're going to stir that until it just starts to simmer. Once you see that it has started to simmer, you're going to slowly add the custard powder, stirring as you go. Once it reaches to a thickness that you are happy with, you're going to pour that custard onto a plate just like I've got here. Place this plate of custard into a room in your house where it's usually quite cool. So in my house, it was the laundry. So I put the plate of custard in the laundry for it to cool down faster. Now onto the cream. Using 300 ml of the thickening cream, I've poured that into the bowl of the stand mixer. I've added a bit of sugar. I probably added a bit too much. I think maybe 2 teaspoons to 3 teaspoons would be just enough. And as you do with cream, you're just going to whip that up until it becomes whipping cream. Now that we've made all the components, it is time to assemble your profiteroles. First, you're going to slice all your pastry balls horizontally. Secondly, you're just going to grab a spoon and just spoon out a little bit of custard and place it on the bottom half of the profiterole. Then using another spoon, you're going to spoon out about a teaspoon to a tablespoon of cream, and you're going to put that on top of the custard. And then you close that up, and then you'll do the same thing with all the other pastry bowls. So to add that cherry on the top for these profiteroles, I am going to melt probably half a block of baking chocolate in the microwave and just using a spoon, drizzle that melted chocolate all over these profiteroles. I remember as a child, this was my favorite part. I would just wait next to my mum until she finished drizzling this chocolate so I can just lick that bowl clean. And there you go, you've got your delicious French profiteroles all ready to be devoured. Now, the final French pastry is the chocolate tart. Now, the French chocolate tart is a dessert consisting of a chocolate custard filling poured into a crisp, sweetened pastry shell and then baked. Now, out of the three pastries, this is the one that I was most nervous for because I know that making the shell can be quite difficult. It can rip, which you'll see it did. But we made it work and it tasted delicious. So this is how you make a French chocolate tart. In the bowl of a stand mixer, now you don't need a stand mixer to do this. You can just simply use your rubber spatula. With the paddle attachment, I'm going to combine 140 grams of room temperature unsalted butter with 75 grams of sugar. And I'm going to let that mix until it is nice and smooth. Once it is smooth, you're going to add 1 egg, 25 grams of almond flour, and 1/4 teaspoon of salt to the butter mixture, and again, mix that until it is all combined. Using 250 grams of flour, you're going to sift the flour in. Now, the recipe doesn't call for sifting, but my mum has always told me anytime you are adding flour in to a recipe, always sift it. And on just a low speed, you're going to mix that until it is just incorporated. And the dough should just come together into a ball, or it would just stick to your paddle attachment like you see here. Now you're going to divide the dough into 2 equal pieces, and you're going to wrap that in plastic and pop it into the refrigerator for it to chill for a minimum of 2 hours or overnight. Once the dough has been chilled, you're going to unwrap the dough and you're going to dust your workplace with flour. Now, I'll give you a note here. You will need plenty of flour because while cold dough should prevent it from sticking, I found that it still sticks. You're going to roll it out to about 3 to 4 millimeters thick, rolling from the center outward in all directions. As you can see, it was a little bit of a struggle. There were plenty of patches needing to be fixed. But add the flour as you need, and hopefully it will just discourage it from sticking. So as carefully as possible, you're going to transfer the dough into the tart pan and just gently press the dough into place without stretching the dough, or the sides will shrink while it bakes. Now, as you see, there were many patchworks to be done, but it did turn out okay. So don't worry if that happens, you just gotta patch it up. Once that is in place, you're going to prick the base all over with a fork and then again place it in the fridge or freezer for 30 minutes. Preheat the oven to 175 degrees. Line the tart shell with some baking paper and then fill it with some pie weights. Now, I don't have any pie weights, but you can use beans or rice. In this case, I just used rice. You're going to bake that for 18 to 20 minutes, then remove the baking paper, brush it over with the egg white, and you're going to then bake it for another 6 to 7 minutes for a fully baked shell. The pastry should be a light golden brown color. Once that is done, you're going to just let it cool and start on the chocolate cream. Have the oven on, preheating to 160 degrees. First, we'll need to melt the chocolate. So by melting the chocolate, you can simply put it in the microwave, but the way that I do it is to place a saucepan filled with 2 inches of water on the stove over medium to low heat. You'll need a total of 170 grams of chocolate. Most recipes you'll find calls for all dark chocolate, but I went with a little bit of combination. So 100 grams of milk chocolate and 70 grams of dark chocolate. Set the heat-proof bowl over the saucepan, making sure the bottom of the bowl doesn't touch the water, and melt the chocolate while stirring occasionally. Once that is done, just turn the heat off, but keep the saucepan on there, and that will just keep the chocolate warm and melted while you do the next part. In a small bowl, you're going to beat together 1 egg and 1 egg yolk. Now, just a reminder, these eggs need to be at room temperature. You're going to beat that with 25 grams of sugar and 2 tablespoons of the 250 mils of thickening cream. With the rest of the cream, you're going to pour that into a small saucepan and bring it to boil over medium heat. As soon as it starts to boil, remove it from the heat, and then you're going to pour half of that cream into the egg mixture, whisking as you go. Then with that egg mixture, you're going to then whisk it back into the saucepan with the rest of the cream. Place the saucepan back on the stove over low heat and remember to whisk constantly. And this should take about 2 minutes until you start to see it thickening up. Now you're going to pour that hot custard through the strainer over the melted chocolate. Now, using a rubber spatula, stir the chocolate and custard until fully combined. Just remember to stir gently so you don't want to beat any air bubbles into the mixture. Pour the chocolate custard into the tart shell and bake it for 8 to 9 minutes. After the 8 to 9 minutes, you'll see that the sides have begun to thicken, but the middle will still be quite liquidy. But don't worry, as it cools down, it will start to thicken up. Remove it from the oven, and this is the worst part. You've got to cool it down for at least 2 hours before trying it. Oh, no one likes to wait hours before you try your dessert that you've just made, but then it is well worth the wait because this chocolate tart, let me tell you, it is the perfect sweet French dessert that just satisfies your sweet tooth. This chocolate tart would go perfect with some ice cream or some berries on the side. Delicious. So there you have it, 3 classic French pastries, and boy, my cravings have been satisfied. Now, all 3 recipes are in the description for you to try, and I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next time.